They used me as the family ATM for 15 years. So I closed every account, revoked every access, and watched them panic when their cards declined. Hey lovely people. Subscribe to be part of this family and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. With that, let's continue the story. My phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m. I already knew who it was before I opened my eyes. The same person who'd been calling me every week for 15 years. My mother. Baby girl, I need you to send $2,000 by morning. Your brother's car got repossessed and he needs it for work. I sat up in bed, my silk sheets cool against my skin. Through my bedroom window, the city lights blurred through exhausted tears I refused to let fall. Mama, I just sent you $3,000 last week for Daddy's medication. That was last week. This is now. Family takes care of family. Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like the first fracture in a dam that's been holding back an ocean. I was 38 years old. A senior financial analyst making six figures. Living in a luxury apartment I barely enjoyed because I was too busy being everyone's safety net. I'd sacrificed my own dreams, delayed my own life, emptied my own future for people who saw me as nothing more than a walking bank account with a heartbeat. I'll call you back, I whispered. Don't you dare. I hung up. My hands trembled as I opened my banking app. The screen glowed in the darkness, revealing a truth I'd been avoiding for years. Despite my salary, I had $83,000 in savings. I should have had 10 times that. My retirement account was a joke. My investment portfolio practically non-existent. I'd been funding entire lives while mine stood still, gathering dust like furniture in a storage unit nobody planned to reclaim. Sleep never came. At dawn, I did something I'd avoided for years. I pulled every bank statement from the past decade and spread them across my dining table. My coffee grew cold as the sun rose higher, illuminating a financial massacre I'd authored with my own generosity. $347,000. Gone. Not invested. Not saved. Not spent on my own life. Just gone, disappeared into the void of family emergencies that never seemed to end. My vision blurred as I traced the wire transfers, the Venmo payments, the checks that cleared like clockwork every month. Mama needs dentures, $4,000. Daddy's truck payment, $600 monthly for 3 years. Brother Ethan's legal fees, $12,000. Sister Janine's wedding, $15,000. Cousin Troy's bail, $8,000. Nephew's school supplies, $2,000 annually. The list went on. And on. And on. I remembered each request. Each sob story. Each guilt trip wrapped in accusations about forgetting where I came from, about getting bougie, about thinking I was better than my roots. My mother's voice echoed in my memory. We raised you. We fed you. We clothed you. Now you too good to help your own blood. But as I stared at the numbers, a different story emerged. One where my 4 siblings, all capable adults with jobs, contributed exactly $0 to our parents' care. One where my brother Ethan, who'd called me sellout for going to college, had no problem selling out my bank account for his rent. One where my sister Janine, who'd mocked my career choice, had her hand out first when she needed a down payment. The resentment I'd suppressed for 15 years bubbled up like poison. I called my best friend Nicole at 7 a.m. She answered on the first ring, already knowing something was wrong. I'm done, I said, my voice hollow. I'm completely done, Nick. What happened? I told her about the 2 a.m. call. About the spreadsheet of shame currently covering my table. About how I'd become an ATM machine with a pulse, and how my family had programmed themselves to make withdrawals but never deposits. Nicole was quiet for a long moment. Then, Dee, you know I love you. But I've been waiting 15 years for you to say those words. What? Remember when you missed my destination wedding because your daddy needed emergency dental work? Work that could have waited 6 months but somehow had to happen that exact weekend. I did remember. I'd cried in my apartment, dressed in my bridesmaid dress with nowhere to go, my flight canceled, my $3,000 contribution to their emergency cleared from my account within hours. Remember when you sold your dream car, that vintage Mercedes you'd wanted since college, to cover your brother's legal fees? For a crime he committed? His third offense. My throat tightened. I'd loved that car. Saved for it for 3 years. Owned it for 6 months. Remember when you postponed grad school because your mama said she needed help with bills, but somehow your sister got a brand new weave and your brother upgraded his Jordan collection that same month? Stop, I whispered. No. You need to hear this. They've been using you, Diana. For years. And every time I tried to tell you, you'd defend them. After Nicole hung up, I did something invasive but necessary. I checked my brother Ethan's Instagram. My stomach turned as I scrolled through his posts from the past year. There he was at a resort in Jamaica 2 months ago. There he was with bottle service at an upscale club 3 weeks ago. Designer sneakers. High-end restaurants. A lifestyle that didn't match someone who supposedly couldn't afford his own car payment. I switched to Janine's Facebook. Her wedding, the one I dropped $15,000 on, looked beautiful. But as I scrolled, I found posts about her and her husband's honeymoon to Bali. Posts about their new furniture. Posts about date nights that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Meanwhile, I'd been eating meal prep and store-brand cereal to save money for their next emergency. My daddy's Facebook showed a different story than the one my mama told. Pictures of him at barbecues, bowling nights, casino trips with his brothers. Not the bedridden, desperate man I'd been told needed immediate financial intervention every month. The manipulation crystallized before my eyes. These weren't emergencies. This was a system. A well-oiled machine where I was the fuel and they were the beneficiaries living lives they couldn't afford on their own dimes. My phone buzzed. Mama again. Diana, I haven't heard back from you. Your brother really needs. Mama, I saw Ethan in Jamaica last month. Silence. On Instagram. At a resort. The same week you told me he couldn't afford groceries. Baby, that was... somebody else paid for that. Who? More silence. Then, why you checking up on people? That's disrespectful. My laugh came out bitter and sharp. What's disrespectful is lying to me so I'll fund your lives. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon. The house I'd helped renovate 5 years ago with a $20,000 loan, nobody intended to repay. The lawn was immaculate. The cars in the driveway were newer than mine. The satellite dish on the roof advertised premium cable packages. Mama opened the door already defensive. You didn't need to drive all this way. I think I did. I walked past her into the living room where my daddy sat in his recliner. The $800 one I'd bought him for his 60th birthday. He looked healthy. Strong. Not the dying man I'd been told needed constant medical intervention. Ethan was there too, wearing $200 sneakers. Janine arrived 10 minutes later, probably summoned by a frantic text. She wore a designer purse I recognized from a boutique downtown. $1,200 if I remembered correctly. I stood in the center of the room I'd helped furnish and spoke words I'd rehearsed during the entire drive over. I'm not giving anyone any more money. The room erupted. Mama's voice rose above the others. After everything we've done for you, we raised you. We sacrificed. And I've paid you back threefold, I said calmly. $347,000 over 15 years. I calculated it this morning. Daddy's face went pale. Ethan looked away. Janine's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's not, you can't put a price on family, Mama sputtered. You did. Every time you called me with your hand out. Every time you guilt-tripped me. Every time you made me choose between my future and your wants. Your brother needs. Ethan needs a job. A budget. Accountability. Ethan jumped up, his face twisted with rage. You always thought you were better than us. With your fancy degree and your downtown apartment. You forgot where you came from. I didn't forget, I said quietly. I just finally realized where I'm going. And it's not here, funding your lifestyle while mine collects dust. How dare you? Janine's voice cracked. We're family. Then act like it. When's the last time any of you asked how I was doing? Really asked? Not, how you doing, followed immediately by, I need money, but genuine interest in my life. The silence was deafening. When's the last time any of you showed up for me? My promotion last year? Nobody came to the celebration dinner. My birthday? I spent it alone because nobody remembered. The weekend I had the flu so bad I could barely move. I called for help and Mama said she was too busy at a church function. Tears burned my eyes but I blinked them back. I'd cried enough for these people. Daddy finally spoke, his voice gruff. You making us sound like monsters. No, Daddy. I'm making you sound exactly like what you are, people who've been taking advantage of someone who loved you too much to say no. Mama's tactics shifted, tears appearing like magic. I can't believe my own daughter would abandon us. After all the nights I went without so you could eat. Stop, I said firmly. That was your job as a parent. You don't get to hold basic parenting over my head like a debt I can never repay. I've repaid it. Multiple times over. And now I'm done. So that's it. Ethan said. You're just cutting us off? Not cutting you off, I corrected. Setting boundaries. Something I should have done 15 years ago when this pattern started. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app, where I'd written everything down during my sleepless night. My hands shook slightly but my voice remained steady. Here's what's happening. Effective immediately, I'm removing all of you from my accounts. Mama, Daddy, the credit card I gave you for emergencies? Cancelled. The bank account access? Revoked. Ethan, the car I'm co-signed on? I'm removing myself. Janine, the $500 monthly I send for Mama and Daddy's bills? Done. You can't do this. Mama's tears turned to fury. We'll lose everything. Then get jobs. All of you work. You're capable adults. Figure it out like the rest of the world does. Ethan stepped forward, his fists clenched. You selfish. Don't. My voice dropped to ice. Don't you dare call me selfish. I've been the opposite of selfish. I've been a doormat. A cash register. A retirement plan. But I'm done being your solution to problems you create for yourselves. Janine tried a different approach, her voice softening. Dee, we can talk about this. Maybe we did take advantage a little bit. A little bit? I laughed, harsh and brittle. Janine, you make $60,000 a year. Your husband makes $70,000. But somehow you needed me to pay for your wedding, your furniture, your car repairs. Where does your money go? She looked away, caught. I'll tell you where. Into the life you want to project on social media. Into keeping up appearances. Into pretending you're doing better than you are. Daddy's voice cut through the chaos. Sit down, girl. You owe us that much. I should have left. But some part of me, the part that still remembered being 7 years old and thinking my daddy hung the moon, made me sink into the couch. Your mama and I, Daddy began, we did the best we could. We didn't have the opportunities you had. No college degrees. No fancy jobs. We worked ourselves to the bone to keep a roof over your heads. I know that, I said. And I appreciate it. But appreciation doesn't mean bankrolling your retirement at the expense of my own future. You don't understand what it's like, Mama interjected. To watch your child succeed while you struggle. To know she has money while you're counting pennies. But you're not counting pennies, I countered. You have cable. New phones. You eat out regularly. You go on trips. The struggle isn't real, Mama. You've just learned that crying poor gets you what you want from me. Ethan exploded. We gave you everything. When you wanted to go to that science camp in 8th grade, who paid for it? When you needed a prom dress, who bought it? I was a child. My voice cracked. Those were your responsibilities as parents. You can't hold childhood necessities over my head as adults and use them to justify draining my accounts. The truth was uglier than any of us wanted to admit. Somewhere along the way, my success had become their entitlement. My college degree had transformed me from daughter to resource. My salary had made me less of a person and more of a solution to every problem they refused to solve themselves. Over the next week, the phone calls intensified. Mama called crying. Daddy called angry. Ethan sent threatening texts. Janine tried the friendly approach, suggesting coffee dates to talk things through. I ignored them all. Instead, I made appointments. First with my bank. I closed the joint account Mama had access to. Removed Ethan from my car loan. Changed my direct deposit information from the family account we'd shared for emergencies to a completely new account at a different bank. Second with a therapist. Dr. Sarah Gardner looked at me with kind eyes as I spilled 15 years of financial abuse disguised as family obligation. You know this is abuse, right? She said gently. Financial exploitation. It's real, it's documented, and it's more common than people think. Hearing someone validate my experience made something inside me crack open. I cried for the first time since this started. Really cried. Ugly, choking sobs for all the years I'd swallowed my own needs to satisfy theirs. They're going to escalate, Dr. Gardner warned. When manipulators lose their power source, they don't go quietly. He was right. Mama showed up at my office the following Tuesday. Security called me asking if I wanted them to remove her. Through the lobby camera, I could see her causing a scene, crying about her ungrateful daughter, who'd abandoned her. I had her escorted out. The look she gave me through the glass doors was pure hatred wrapped in victimhood. That night Ethan posted on Facebook, "Family ain't loyal anymore. Some people get money and forget where they came from. Praying for my sister who thinks she's too good for her own blood." The comments were brutal. Relatives I barely knew condemned me. Church members questioned my character. But something unexpected happened. My cousin Tasha, Daddy's brother's daughter, sent me a private message. "Girl, I've been waiting for this. They've been using you for years. You're not crazy and you're not wrong." Then my Aunt Rebecca called. "Baby, I'm proud of you. Your mama did the same thing to me until I moved 3 states away." My coworker Austin, who'd overheard me crying in my car one day, pulled me aside. "My family did this to me for 10 years. Best thing I ever did was cut them off financially. They're still family, but they're family who pays their own bills now." The validation was overwhelming. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the villain in this story, no matter how hard they tried to paint me as one. Nicole threw me a freedom party, half joke, half serious celebration of my boundaries. Her husband Ethan toasted me, to Diana, who finally realized that family is supposed to add to your life, not drain it. But the guilt still gnawed. Despite everything, despite the evidence and the validation and the therapy sessions, part of me wondered if I was being too harsh. Maybe I should have tried harder to make them understand. Maybe. My phone buzzed. Mama's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Your daddy's in the hospital," she said, her voice flat. "Heart attack. He might not make it. I guess you don't care though, right? Since you abandoned us." My heart stopped. Every boundary I'd built crumbled like sandcastles in a tsunami. "Which hospital?" She told me. I grabbed my keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely start my car. This was it. The emergency that justified everything. The proof that I'd been wrong, cruel, heartless. I burst into the emergency room, my heart pounding, my mind racing with guilt and fear and horrible images of my daddy dying alone because I'd been too stubborn to help. The nurse at the desk looked confused when I asked for Robert Johnson, room 347. "Ma'am, Mr. Johnson was treated and released 3 hours ago. Chest pain, but tests came back clear. Not a heart attack. Probably indigestion." The world tilted. I stood there, frozen, as the truth crashed over me like ice water. It was a lie. A manipulation. A final desperate attempt to pull me back into the cycle. I drove to my parents' house. Daddy answered the door, looking healthy and well-fed. Behind him, I could see Mama on the couch, my brother Ethan beside her. "You lied," I said quietly. "About the heart attack." Mama had the decency to look slightly ashamed. "Slightly. I had to get you here somehow. You won't answer our calls. Because you only call when you want money. We're your family." Mama stood now, her voice rising. "We need you." "No," I said, and my voice was steel. "You need my money. There's a difference." Daddy tried to interject. "Baby girl, we're struggling. Because you refuse to adjust your lifestyle to match your income. Because you spend money you don't have and expect me to cover the difference. Because you've built your entire financial plan around exploiting me." Ethan stepped forward. "You're being dramatic." "Am I? You told me you were homeless last month. I drove by your apartment yesterday. You're still there. You told me your car was repossessed. It's in the driveway right now. Everything you've told me has been exaggerated or fabricated to squeeze money out of me. The next hour was brutal. Every justification they offered I countered with facts. Every guilt trip they attempted I deflected with truth. Every tear Mama cried I recognized as manipulation. I'm leaving, I finally said. And I'm not coming back until you can respect me as a person, not a bank account. Then you're not coming back, Ethan spat. Because we need help and you're our daughter. Our sister. That's what family does. No, I said softly. That's what I did. Past tense. Family supports each other. This is exploitation dressed up as obligation. I walked toward the door, each step heavier than the last. Not because I was wrong, but because love and boundaries shouldn't have to be mutually exclusive. They'd force me to choose. If you walk out that door, Mama said, her voice shaking, don't bother coming back. I turned one last time. I love you, all of you, but I love myself more now. And that's going to have to be enough. The drive home was silent except for my own breathing. I didn't cry. I felt hollow but also light. Like I'd been carrying a boulder for 15 years and had finally set it down. Dr. Gardner was right. They did escalate. Over the next month, I received hundreds of messages from relatives telling me I was wrong, selfish, cruel. My phone number got posted in family group chats I wasn't part of, labeled Judas's number. But I also received messages from cousins who'd experienced similar treatment. From friends who admired my strength. From co-workers who shared their own stories of family financial abuse. 6 months later I sat in my apartment, the same one I'd always had, but it felt different now. Lighter somehow. I'd started the grad school program I'd postponed. Bought myself the vacation I'd always dreamed of. Opened an investment account that was actually growing. My savings account had swelled to over 90,000. My retirement fund was finally on track. For the first time in 15 years I was building a future instead of funding someone else's present. Tasha called one evening. Your mama asked me to reach out. Said she wants to talk. About what? She didn't say. But Diana? He looked different. Older maybe. Or tired. I thought about it for 3 days. Finally I sent a text. I'm willing to meet. In public. For coffee. To talk, not to negotiate. We met at a neutral cafe. Mama looked smaller somehow, diminished without the power she'd wielded over me for so long. We sat in uncomfortable silence until she spoke. I was wrong. The words seemed to cost her physically. Not about needing help but about how I asked. About expecting instead of appreciating. About making you responsible for lives you didn't create. I wanted to feel vindicated. Said I just felt sad. Sad for all the years we'd wasted in this toxic dance. Sad that it took complete separation for her to see me as a person. I can't go back to how things were, I said gently. I know. She stirred her coffee, not meeting my eyes. Your daddy and I got jobs. Part-time, but it's something. Ethan too. Janine's cutting back. That's good, Mama. I'm sorry I made you feel like an ATM instead of a daughter. Her voice cracked. I told myself I was just asking family for help, but I took advantage. We all did. We talked for an hour. Not about money. About life. My grad classes. Her new job. Small steps towards something that might someday resemble a healthy relationship. As I drove home, I thought about the question Dr. Gardner had asked me in our first session. What do you want your life to look like? For 15 years I couldn't answer because my life wasn't my own. Now I knew. A life where love didn't come with a price tag. Where family meant support, not exploitation. Where I could be generous by choice, not by guilt. I'd closed every account, revoked every access, and watched them panic when their cards declined. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. It was also the moment I finally started living. Some bridges you don't burn. You just stop setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. And maybe, just maybe, they learn to generate their own heat. Or maybe they don't. But either way, you're no longer burning. If you've experienced financial exploitation from family members, know that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival. Your story matters. Share your experiences in the comments and remember, you deserve a future that's yours to build. Like and subscribe for more real stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your life. What would you have done in Diana's situation? Let me know below.